Hello everybody. Today I'm going to review the TP-Link WR940N router. It's a 450 megabits per second wireless N router and it's a fairly inexpensive router. I'm going to review it, show you its features and its pros and its cons and whether it is the right router for you or not. It's a fairly inexpensive router. I believe it's under $30 on Amazon, and that's where I got it. Click on the video description below to see links to this router on Amazon if you wish to purchase it. I will also put links to it on eBay so that you can get it from a reputable seller on that platform as well. Okay, let's get into it. All right, let's unbox the router. Let's just go through the box first, and you can see the typical TP-Link attractive packaging, green package. This is the TL-WR940N. You can read this stuff here. There's the features and benefits and so on. Let me go through the outside of the box. Okay, we'll go quickly through that. Just your typical green, and there's a 2-year warranty on it. That's a great thing. There is some pictures of the router and its features. Again, what comes in the router on the side, and on the back I want to show you some neat stuff here. First of all, the neatest thing on this router that I found, or most interesting anyways, is it's claiming to have 3x3 MIMO technology, and you can see it here again. And MIMO means multiple in, multiple out. And if you want to learn more about that, you can Google it and find out more about it. But it should give us higher bandwidth, the ability to send data to 3 different devices simultaneously, and also to communicate with other devices that are MIMO enabled at faster speeds. Also, MIMO gives you wider range. So they advertise all that here on the back of the router. I can't find what the specifications are for the MIMO, whether it's SU MIMO or MU MIMO. So I don't know, maybe somebody knows, and if you do, put it in the video description below. And I'll put links to this router in the video description below. And primarily what I'm comparing it against is the WR841N, which is its older little brother, which I got running here. This one here you can buy, I believe, from $19 to $25 on eBay and Amazon all day long. This one's $30 on Amazon, and seriously, after comparing the two, spend the extra $5. Get yourself the WR940N. The only reason I would say that you may want to get this one instead of this one is that if you're going to use DDWRT on the on your router and you want to, well, unless you get a version from 1 to, I believe, 6 on the WR940N, you won't be able to put DDWRT on it. That's the third-party firmware. So if you know what I'm talking about with that, DDWRT is only supported on the TP-Link WR940N up to version 6. So I don't know what they're selling currently, but you know, if you can assure yourself of getting a 6, then you'll be fine. I have the version 3 here, so that's not an issue for me. I have put DDWRT on this router without any problem at all, and it works great. So let's unbox it. Now you may want to know how much this router weighs. I don't know why, but I weighed it so you guys will know. And the router weighs 316 grams or 11.15 ounces. So here's all the stuff that comes in the packaging. We get a power supply, of course, going to need that. And this is a 1 amp power supply. See if I can bring it up close enough. You guys can read it. Okay. And it's 12 volts, 1 amp. Very attractive router, as you can see. It's, you know, it's a good looking router. All the LEDs are blue except the WAN port changes from orange to blue when you disconnected it. From blue to orange when you disconnect it. So that's cool. Yeah, it's a great looking router on the back. 3 antennas, fairly nice size antennas too. They're not detachable. If you're wondering if you can take the antennas off, they're not able to be unscrewed. They're built right in. I may take it apart and look inside, but basically that's what we have here. And the antennas are fairly large, as you can see. So that's a good thing. Venting on the bottom, spectacular. All this is venting here. All this etched area, all these little squares are little vents to allow it to cool down. And you can see that there's also slots on the edges here to allow more cooling to happen. So they really want to keep this guy nice and cool and air flowing through it. And as you can see, you know, they've certainly put a lot into that. We've got 3 ports. Here you can see actually 4 ports, 4 LAN ports, 1 WAN port or internet port here. See if I can get you a better look at that. There we go. And we've got a wireless on and off. So you can turn the wireless on and off with just a button. WPS button or a reset button, power button, okay, and power port. So all these ports on the back are 100 megabit ports, 100 megabits per second ports. So that makes this kind of a strange router. And the wireless is 450N, which means 450 megabits per second. Theoretical maximum on the wireless. Okay, so yeah, I'll talk about that because that is kind of a strange thing, but I'll go through it for you. It's not an issue, and I'll tell you the pluses and minuses of all this technology. But yeah, great looking router, and certainly a worthwhile upgrade from the WR940N, as long as you understand that DD-WRT firmware only goes on this router up to version 6. Okay, so other than that, beautiful. Okay, so let's go through the technology, and then you know, I'll comment further on all of it. All right, boot up speed from the time you hit the power button to the time you get the router actually operational is about 45 secones. I don't really need to show you that. I just want to show you the attractive LEDs. They're nice and blue, a lot prettier than the TP-Link WR940N's green ones. But, you know, LEDs, right? So I'm just going to go through the process here. Actually, I'm just going to unplug the WAN port, plug it back in, and see if it turns amber. Yep. There it is. You can see that when it's not connected to the internet, it goes amber. When it is connected, it goes blue. That's the only one that state changes color from what I can see. And I'll just do a quick boot up so you guys can see the you know, display. You can see it goes through all the lights, and then 45 seconds from now, it'll look exactly like it did when I first started this clip of the video. Almost forgot the rest of the package contents. We've got a technical support pamphlet, a quick installation guide, looks like, or installation guide. There we go. General public license notice. These are standard fare. A patch cable, RJ45, standard LAN patch cable. These are very useful when you're setting it up. If you don't have wireless, or even if you do, still nice to have. And software installation CD. Okay, let's get into the pros and cons on this router. Currently, the price is under $30. See the video description below for those links. It's got MIMO 3x3 support, allows 3 single MIMO devices to talk simultaneously, or a single 3x3 device to talk simultaneously. I'll explain this in a minute. It's got 450N support on 2.4 gigahertz band, or the 802.11n technology. The 450 megabits wireless speed is only for the TP-Link TL WR940N version 3 and higher. Earlier versions are only 300. It's got a 750 megahertz processor, faster than the WR940N at 550. There we go. IPQoS bandwidth limiting, which is great. WPS button for one-touch setup if you're setting up a printer or something like that. It's WDS bridge capable, great for expanding your network. It does have range extender mode for version 5s and later. Access point mode for version 5s and later. So there's those modes. It's got an increased range over the TP-Link WR940N. I'd say almost up to 50% wider Wi-Fi range It's amazing how far I can connect to this router compared to the WR940N. I'm not sure why. I think it just has better antennas. I have no idea, but it certainly does have a bigger range. And to me, that alone is the reason to buy this router, because, hey, the further you can go, the better. The DDWRT third-party firmware support is only supported on this router from 1 to 6 currently, okay? So that may change in the future, but if you don't have a version of this router, the WR940N from 1 to 6, then the DDWRT firmware will probably not work on it. Cons: it's only single band, only has 2.4 gigahertz, no 5 gigahertz available on it, and the LAN and WAN ports are only 100 megabits per second, and 450N 3x3 MIMO support is limited. In other words, and what I mean by limited is that you need special network cards to be able to do 450N 3x3, because you need 3 antennas to actually be able to connect at 450. So that's a rare bird. I'll show you that, a couple of those adapters. Here's a TP-Link WND-N4800, and you can see it has 3 antennas. And yeah, this will get you to the N450 no problem, because it's got 3 antennas. You need 3 antennas to do it. Here's a laptop adapter called the Ultimate N6300AGN from Intel. It's a half PCIe card, and you notice that it's got 3 antenna connections on it. Now your laptop's going to have 3 antenna connections on it, or 3 antennas built into it, or you're going to have to add a 3 antenna array to your laptop. So yeah, that's, again, I'll put links to all this stuff in the video description below if you want to do it. And I may actually do this myself, buy this card and install it to see how it works on 450. But again, that's what you're going to need to do to get your laptop to do it. Or you can have a laptop that already has 3 antennas and this support in it. Again, rare birds. So yeah. And the AC900 from TP-Link does all the same things that the 450 does, except it gives you the gigabit ports, which are, much faster. Okay, so back to our, well, let's go to our array here, or my graphic. And you can see here that I've got it set up to show you the speeds on this thing. Now, the internet, if you were connected to the backbone, you could get 100 gigabits per second off of it, which is insane, but that's not coming to your house. Now, if you have any more than, I would say, 90 megabits per second, or you're paying for 100 megabit or more internet connection, I would say don't go with this router, because you're going to be pegging it. You're paying for 100 megabits internet bandwidth. You want to get that 100 megabits to every device inside your network. This router won't be able to handle that, at least not well. So yeah, if you have 100 megabit per second or higher speed going to your house, go to the AC900 instead of this router. Okay, so maximum speed, 100 megabits per second. And what does that mean? Well, it's megabits. So if we do the math, you take 100 and you divide that by 8, okay? And that tells you the maximum megabytes per second this thing can transfer. So it can transfer 12.5 maximum to anything on the network or anything in the internet, okay? On the internet, back or forth. And you can see here on the 4 ports, you're going to get 100 megabits on each one. Now, think about that. If you got a 100 megabit connection to the internet, and you've got 4 devices all trying to draw 100 megabits per second, they're all going to get 25 megabits per second maximum at the same time. So yeah, you can see how these ports limit the speed. Now, it doesn't really matter whether you had gigabit ports here or not. You still can't go any faster than the slowest point between your computer and the data that you're trying to get. So, this 100 megabits will always be divided by 4, regardless of the speed of the router. Okay, so then we get into this. Oh, but I got 400 megabits on the wireless band. Yes, you do. And what does that mean? It means that anything that's wirelessly connected at 450 will be able to talk to something else that's wirelessly connected at 450 megabits per second. But outside of wireless devices talking to each other at 450, that speed will never make it outside of the router, outside of the wireless domain. Because once it hits the router, again, it's limited by these ports to 100 megabits per second regardless. Okay? So, understand this, right? So if you've got a 60 megabit per second internet connection, then you're perfectly fine. You're good to go, right, on this router. Understanding these limitations, okay? For an extra, I believe, another $10 on top of this router, you can go to the TP-Link AC900 and get the gigabit ports, which makes this router make a bit more sense at 450 N. Okay, so let's get back to this diagram here. So yeah, this is where we're at. Wireless, 450 megabits per second. Everything on wireless will talk to each other at 450. Everything on connected to your LAN ports will talk at a maximum of 12.5 megabytes per second or 100 megabits per second. Again, on the LAN port, you're going to get that same kind of speed, and that will be distributed to everything in the router. Maximum 100 megabits per second internet speed to anything on this router. So, yeah, kind of a big limitation. But if you have a 60 megabit per second or 50 megabit per second connection, perfectly fine router for that. So, I wanted to explain a little bit about this MIMO technology and how it works. Now, any 802.11n router has MIMO technology in it. The question is, how much of it does it have? On the WR940N, there's only 2 antennas, so it only has 2x2 MIMO technology. This is 3 antennas, so it has 3x3 MIMO technology. Let's see if I got my slide here. There we go. So here's how the MIMO technology works. If you've got a 1x1 MIMO device, then it's going to connect to one antenna and get one data stream. If you've got a 2x2 MIMO device, it's going to connect to 2 antennas and get 2 streams. Now, each stream is 150 megabits per second. So this device here would be talking at 150 max. This would be talking at 300 max. And if you have a 3x3 device, then you'd be connecting at 150, 150, 150. And that would be 450 megabits per second connection. Now, where this is advantageous on this router is that what if you've got 3 1x1 MIMO devices? Then every single one of them can connect to this router independently of each other and not interfere with the next one. So there's where the MIMO technology is so cool, especially on this router. And especially at $30, okay, which is, very reasonable router. Now, again, if you want the extra speed, spend the extra $10 and get the AC900, and you'll get a fully decked out router with gigabit ports and 450N and AC 450 as well. So, again, lots of things to consider there, especially the N450 connection. You need in order to connect to any N450 router, you need a Wi-Fi card or a Wi-Fi adapter on your laptop or on your device that is 3x3. Okay, and I'll give you an example here. If we go to my network settings, let's go Ethernet here. Okay, and I'll show you something here. I don't have a 3x3 MIMO network card in this laptop. So look at the status. I'm at 300, no problem there. Okay, what does that tell me? It means I got a MIMO 2x2 card. Only has 2 antennas. Okay, so that means I can only connect to it at 150 and 150 again because it's got 2 antennas. Each antenna gives me 150. But you can see there, I'm connected to it at 300 megabits per second, which is pretty cool, right? So I'm happy with that, and if I had an N450 card, I'm sure I'd be up to 450 connected to it right at this point. But, so understand the limitations. You need the right hardware to connect an N450. If you don't have it, it won't happen for you. But I will put the links for the stuff that's N450, like the TP-Link WDN 4800. I'll also put some links for some USB thumb drives that are or Wi-Fi cards that can do N450 as well. And of course, the ultimate N6300 AGN from Intel. Make sure that you order the right one for your laptop. This is a half PCI card, so make sure you have that kind of technology and that kind of slot in your machine. Also, make sure you have 3 antennas, because if you don't, you're going to need to order something like this, 3 antenna kit, okay, and install it in your laptop. Now, this is beyond the scope of this video, but again, I'm reviewing this router and telling you what's good and what isn't good about it, and I think it's a great router. So at this point, I would say I more or less covered my review on it. My feeling on this router, and here's one more thing I want to say too, on these routers, on any router. There is 2 bands that are currently being used in routers. That is 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. Now, the 5 gigahertz is considerably faster, and this router does not have 5 gigahertz in it. It only has 2.4. But the range of 5 gigahertz is limited. It's not anywhere as good as 2.4. 2.4 gigahertz has a much wider range, and to me, the range is as important as the speed. It's no good if you have all sorts of speed, and you take your phone to the corner of your house, and your phone no longer connects to Wi-Fi because it's 5 gigahertz and you don't have that much of a range, right? So 2.4 gigahertz is still a player in the market because of its range. It has a much further range, and I'm amazed by this router's ability to connect me about, I would say, almost up to 50% further than my WR940N used to. I'm not sure why that is, but it has a lot more range than its little brother. Okay, so let's, I don't know why that zoomed in, but anyway, let's go to wrapping this up at this point. I can consider this router excellent. Let's see if I can get this back down. So yeah, this router is an excellent router considering all its attributes and its speed. Again, make sure that you don't go, and make sure that if you have a higher than, I would say, 90 megabits per second connection to the internet, you go to the bigger brother, spend an extra $10, get the 900. And again, I'll put links to that stuff in the video description below, so you can get to that easily. But again, this is a great router at a great price, and for only $29.99. You can't beat it. Again, I'll put a link in the video description below for you guys so you can buy this anytime you want. In this slide, I want to show you what the MIMO technology actually means on this router. This router has 3x3 MIMO technology, and what that means is that it can actually do 3 streams of data simultaneously and independent of each other to through the 3 antennas. So in this case, let's assume we've got a 1x1 MIMO device, as you can see here. We'll call it each one of these a cell phone, and they're all connecting wirelessly. And so because the cell phone only has one Wi-Fi antenna, it can only connect to this router with 1 stream, and that would make it a 1x1 device. And as you can see here, I've got 3 connected at the same time. Each would be connected independently to each stream by itself, and each phone would get 150 megabits per second connection to this router and get that data simultaneous without interruption from the rest. Okay, so here's what we have on this setup. On the next one, we have a 2x2 MIMO device and a 1x1. The 2x2 could be a tablet or a laptop with 2 antennas. My laptop has 2 antennas, so we'll see, mine does 2x2 MIMO, so this device here would be connected at 300 megabits per second because it's got 2 antennas connected to the router at the same time, receiving 250 megabits per second streams independent of each other. And so that gives you a pretty good throughput on that tablet or laptop. Plus, you'd have one more MIMO device capable of connecting to this thing, and without interrupting or interfering at all, in its own data stream at 150 megabits. And the third scenario would be a 3x3 MIMO device, which has 3 antennas in it, can connect to the 3 antennas on the router at the same time, get 350 megabit per second connections independent of each other, and get a 450 megabit total overall bandwidth out of this router. So that's how the MIMO technology works. Now, don't get me wrong here. You can have more than 3 devices connected to this router at one time. You can have 15 if you wish. It's just that once you get past the, any one of these limits, like 1 by 1 by 1, or 2 by 1, or 3 by 3, then the router starts doing round robin. It starts saying, okay, well, I'll give data to this one now, and then I'll give data to the next one next, and so on and so forth. It can handle more than 3. It's just that after 3 devices, it'll start round robbing, doing a round robin on the data. So yeah, that's the MIMO technology, and that's what it means. Also, the MIMO technology I've seen on the net is capable of actually expanding the range of the router by sending the data, through different antennas at the same time. I'm not sure how that works, but that's what I read on it. So that may explain why this router has such an increased range, for me anyways, over the WR940N. My first test is going to test the speed from the WAN port to one of the LAN ports here. And what I'm going to do is transfer a file from another router that is connected to the LAN port here. The other router is a gigabit router, an Archer C9 with 5 terabyte drive connected to it, and it is more than plenty and fast enough to do this test with. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy a bunch of files from this port, transfer it to one of these ports, so from the network share to the laptop that I'm currently on, and show you the speed of that. So let's do that. Open up the folder here, hit paste, and this is about 1.8 gigs of data. All right, so there you go. It's starting up. It says about 2 minutes, 45 seconds to transfer that data. I'm hitting about 11.4, sometimes 11.5, but mostly around 11.4 on average, megabytes per second. So if we take that 11.4 and multiply it by 8, we get the megabits per second, which are 91.2 megabytes per second. Sorry, megabits per second. So again, see why I'm saying that if you have a 100 megabit per second internet connection to that WAN port or to the internet port, you really should get a faster router, because you're only going to get 91.2 megabits per second through that port. I mean, that's pretty consistent here. You can see it happening, and the graph shows a pretty solid line there. And so that's from the internet or WAN port to one of these ports, and all of those are 100 megabits too, so they'll never go any faster. I'm going to do a wireless connected transfer as well from the WAN port, see if they're any quicker. But I mean, the limit's going to be 100 megabits no matter what, even though this is 450. And though I don't have a 3x3, I have a 2x2 a network card, which will mean that I'll be using 2 of these antennas at the same time. So that should give me about 300 megabits of speed. But regardless of the 300 megabits, I'll not be able to get more than 100 regardless, because, hey, that's the fastest point between me and the data. So I will do a wireless test next and show you the speed of that. But currently, as you can see, it's still going. Like I said, it's 1.8 gigs of video and random stuff. And, pretty solid performance all the way across. But again, on average, about 91.2 megabits per second, sustained, which is not bad on a 100 megabit per second port. Now, understand that all these stats are always in a perfect world. I am using Cat5e cabling and all that, so which is more than fast enough for this test. So The limitation is not the hardware. Even the drive I'm dumping the data onto is a external SD drive, which is a SanDisk and micro SD drive, which is more than fast enough for this. It can do about I think about 40 to 50 megabytes per second. So we're way below that right at this point. So the limitation is the hardware, which is the router. You can see here I'm connected at 300 megabits per second wirelessly. My LAN is off over here. I'm only connected through Wi-Fi. So next I'm going to do a speed test. And I'm going to basically at this point we're going to go from Wi-Fi to the WAN port here, which is 100 megabits per second. It would be the same speed on the LAN ports as well. And we're going to transfer the same file we tested in the first place. So let's see what we get here. Take this out of the way here so I can see. And again, it's the same size file onto the same drive. So I'm just going to hit paste here. Well, it looks like I've lost that. Let's go get it. There it is. Copy it. And back to the SD drive. Here we go. And all right, we'll dump it in. You can see that the speed has changed a bit here from 300 to 243 megabytes per second. It's Wi-Fi. That's what happens. But you can see the speed here is 11.4, 11.3. Same exact speed. Again, because it doesn't matter how fast the Wi-Fi is in this case, because it's limited to the LAN ports. So if we go here, even though we're connected through Wi-Fi, the fastest speed we're going to get through this router from the LAN ports is 100 megabits per second. And I've done the math already on this, as you know. And 11.4, we're at 91.2 megabits per second. But that's still as fast as those LAN ports can go. So it's as fast as the Wi-Fi can transfer. Of course, it's going to vary a lot more than the LAN ports do by themselves because it is Wi-Fi. And I am in a very congested Wi-Fi space. So I'm going to have a lot of interference from other Wi-Fi devices. If you can look, you can see that there's a bunch of other Wi-Fi devices nearby me, a whole bunch. So it's doing really well in this environment to give me that kind of speed through Wi-Fi, and a little speed bump here and there on the speed is not unacceptable. It's totally understandable considering my environment. I guess to test it correctly, I would have to have a Faraday cage and isolate the router and the laptop from this environment. But actually, it's a real-world test, so there's what you're getting. And again, this is from Wi-Fi to the LAN ports. My next test is going to be just strictly Wi-Fi. I'm going to connect two Wi-Fi devices together. This laptop is currently talking to that router through Wi-Fi, but I'm going to hook up this laptop through Wi-Fi to the router and another laptop through Wi-Fi, and we're going to share that same file across to each other through Wi-Fi and see what kind of speed we get there, right? But again, we go back to this, and you can see that's a really fair and nice Wi-Fi transfer speed. So it's basically maxing out at the speed of the ports. It'd probably be faster if those ports were faster, but that's not possible on this router. In order to get faster ports, you'd have to upgrade to the next level of router for an extra $10. Again, I'll put a link to the slightly faster router than this. Well, actually, the much faster router that has gigabit ports instead of 100 megabit ports in the video description below. Okay, so the next is going to be Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi and see what kind of speed we get on that. All right, you can see here we're connected at 300 megabits per second, which means that I'm on a 2x2 MIMO connection to this router, meaning I'm using two antennas on this side. The other side is also on a 2x2 connection, so it is at 300 megabits as well, and we're only connected to it through Wi-Fi. There's no LAN involved at all. So now we're going to copy a file from that other machine to this one and see what kind of speed we get. So let's go to that folder. So there's the shared file or folder I'm going to use, the same one as always. I want to stay the same here. I'm going to dump it onto this folder, and I'm going to hit paste. See what kind of performance we get. Okay, so off the bat, we're getting 10 there for a second, 10.6, 9, 8. So it is Wi-Fi. and I am in a highly polluted Wi-Fi environment. I'll show you that in a second, but you see the speeds we're getting here. Actually, Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi is a little slower than Wi-Fi to the LAN ports. So when we went from the Wi-Fi signal to one of these ports or to the WAN port, it was actually slightly faster. Now, I have my theories on why that's happening. Number one is this. I'm in a environmental Wi-Fi swamp, as you can see. I've got 5 devices just on the first screen here, and if we scroll down further, you see that I have another 7, so 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, probably I'm surrounded by about 20 devices. Let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 there, right? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, 8, 9, 10, 18 wireless devices within range here. So, yeah, that's going to create a lot of Wi-Fi pollution, and it's going to definitely slow down my Wi-Fi connection, which is part of the reason why I'm getting such a dismal result here. I would say I'd get a lot better if I was isolated, and it was just me and the laptops and the router. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I'm surrounded by Wi-Fi devices here. So I would say this is a worst case scenario, and even then I'm still getting 9.9 there, as you can see, 10 sometimes. So that's about 80 megabits per second, right? Which is pretty decent, really, in considering the environment. Again, with this router, for me, the biggest plus about it is not the speed so much as the range, right? You know, if I'm by the pool and, you know, basically I'm about 100, 150 feet away, and I can get signal and I can connect and I can, you know, use my Wi-Fi on my cell phone through this router, then I'm a happy guy, right? You know, it's up to you how you use it and, you know, what's important to you. But you can see here in a total Wi-Fi nightmare environment, we're getting pretty decent speeds. No, I'm not getting 300 megabits per second, but I don't expect that here. And it is Wi-Fi, so it's going to be a bit slower. Now, here's the other thing I suspect may be happening, and I'll show you this. Now, remember the MIMO connection diagram I showed you, you know, where we have 3 antennas and 1 MIMO device can connect to each one of them. Well, both these laptops are MIMO 2x2. So if they connect to this router, what's going to happen? Well, one of the channels is going to have to overlap, right? So they're sharing one of the 3 channels, and I think that's what's causing the slowdown. At least it's causing that. If this was 4x4 MIMO, they would have 4 separate channels for each other, and there would be no sharing, there would be no interruption. But I think that when this happens, you get an interruption and you get a slowdown. So, yeah, sort of a limitation on this in technology and this router, but still a great router for under $30. That's it for my video on the TP-Link WR940N router. This is a great little router. I'll put links to it in the video description below. I think it's a far better product than the WR940N. You know, just on the range itself, the MIMO 3x3 technology definitely helps as well. But for an extra, I believe around $10, this is a far better value. I would definitely go for this, you know, if you could or if you can. Again, understand the caveats that I put inside the video as far as the speed limitations on the LAN and WAN or internet port. Okay, so in the video description below, links to the WR940N from TP-Link. It's a great product, okay? That's it for my video. If you like this video and it helped you out in some way, do me a big favor and click on the like button here in the bottom right hand corner. Give me a thumbs up. All right, that helps my channel and it helps my video, and I greatly appreciate it. Outside of that, if you want to subscribe to my channel, up here on this corner you'll see a picture of me. That is the subscription link. If you click on that, you'll get the option to subscribe to my channel. You will also get a bell icon. That is the notification icon. Click on that and you'll be notified every time I put up a new video, and you can watch that at your leisure. Once again, and like always, I want to thank you for watching and supporting my channel.